Yo guys, what is up? Here is tonight's video. I decided to make it a YouTube video. I apologize for that sound. I just had to move my mic. I don't know if it made a noise, but if it did, I'm sorry. We're gonna get right into it. I'm gonna be talking about structure as always. Why do I talk about structure so much, you may ask? Well, because it is undeniably the most important component of trading. I don't care what you hear, who you hear it from. I honestly don't care. Structure is the most important thing. I am going to mix a couple of other discussions into this video, but primarily I will be talking about structure. I'm going to recap some trades I was looking at and explain to you why I either took them or did not. So yeah, I'm going to kind of go over a couple of trades I took today, and I'm going to recap some stuff and yeah, just kind of talk about positions and the lesson I want you guys to learn. So I'm going to start on GBP/USD. I'm going to start with some trades first. So this is a little trick, and this is the trick that I'm going to be addressing in the video today. Let me maximize this. So the trick I'm going to be addressing today is this. Okay, so people will be looking at levels like this for buys, obviously, right? People will be looking at areas like this as points of interest to buy it up. Okay, now what I do is the exact opposite. I'm aware of the fact that I have a higher time frame point of interest down here. I'm aware of the fact that the lower time frame structure has not indicated higher prices. So what do? I sell, and look at how impulsive the movement is. And I'm not lying. I ended up closing right down here because what I saw, and again, it's very unfortunate that this happens at times, but you can see my TP was right here. Now what happened? Impulsive move with a really big wick. This was a high that produced a low. We break above. So I waited for price to retrace back. I did the wick of this candle, not the body. So I closed when it got back down to here. So I did miss out on about 1 RR. So this, I ended up closing out at like a 1 to 5.5 or 1 to 6. But the lesson I want to talk about primarily in this video relates to structure, which is why I said I'm going to be talking about structure a lot again. Okay, so what we can see is that this is that hourly point of interest right here. So clearly higher low, higher high. Now here's a point of interest, right? Sell to buy candle, inefficiency fill, imbalance, whatever you want to call it. What are people going to do? People are going to try to buy it here. But what ends up happening, if you are careful and follow what I've been saying, what happens in this level? There is never, not one single break of structure to the upside to indicate higher prices. You can see trading into this level just very clearly. Leg, retracement, retracement, leg, right? You can see, so this is all leg, and I'm just following the structure. Oops, I did not want to use that. So I'm just following the structure. Lower highs and lower lows. Lower low, and I'll start here. So we break structure here. Lower low, lower high. Lower low, lower high. Lower low, lower high. Lower low, lower high. Lower low, lower high, right? So we never get, even though we trade into this level and we push up, there's not a BOS, and I'm aware of that. In using this fact that structure is still bullish, along with the fact that my POI is down here where this little inefficiency is. Here's a really inefficient impulsive move, lines up with all of this selling volume. So I'm seeing price coming into here, knowing people, knowing that people are going to be buying, knowing that structure is still bearish. And so what do I expect? I expect it to sell off, and that's exactly what we got, guys. Very minimal drawdown. You could have refined the entry even higher to this inefficiency. It ended up being a 9 to 1 RR. that's not what I did. I took it right here and really clean entry, practically a straight move down, which was awesome. You know, I was really happy with that trade. And yeah, this was a trade that I did take. I did end up taking this one because here's our structure, right? Lower highs and lower lows on the 1 minute. On the 1 minute, I don't usually wait for price to come up and then break again, because the 1 minute structure is essentially the lowest time frame structure that you can be using. So, you know, I'm not huge on waiting for break structure on the 1 minute, but you can. I know I just said that, but here's an exception. So for me here, I did not end up taking this trade because, so what you can see, okay, is this high made this low, okay? Clearly. Now we break above this lower high, sorry, right here. We create a higher high, okay? Now this ended up holding. The entry that was here, if you had taken it, didn't end up holding. Now, the reason I like this is, so this is a leg to the upside, right? And you could have, I mean, there are a couple ways you could have looked for an entry, but the 78.6 was right down here. So you could have been looking to enter off that, or you could have been looking to enter off one of these candles here. So the deal with this, again, is that this is the high that produced this low, and this is clearly one leg to the downside. You could have anticipated a pullback up into here. That's what I was looking at. But you can see on the micro, like the very, very small time frames, there was actually structure holding. And you have to think of this in a fractal manner. But what I personally would have wanted to see was some type of little tiny BOS just for confirmation. So what you could have done for entry here, you can see this low, this low, this low. This was a pocket of liquidity right here that got taken out. So, and I deleted that because you guys can clearly see this is like. So here's your sell to buy that ran it out. Now this could be a point of interest for you, right? And it ended up breaking through. But what I would have wanted was something like this. Now, why was I not looking for that over here? Because over here, this is all the structure we had. This is very clear wave plate, and it's compact. It's these, there's really not much price action making up these legs. Now, this leg, look at how big this leg is compared to all of these, right? There's a big difference. This is an extended leg, and the pullback is deeper. The pullback here was what, maybe 11 pips. The pullback from here to my POI is like 23 pips, right? There's a big difference. It's almost twice as big. So there's price action being generated in here that I wanted to see get broken, that I wasn't necessarily looking for here, that I didn't get. So, but still, the structure ended up holding. Now that's the power of this and understanding. Why did we not create a lower low relative to this? Well, because we traded above it, meaning that we are now bullish and we wouldn't anticipate price trading below here. So that's why we didn't continue down. Now it actually looks like it tested this wick all the way down here. So price broke structure to the upside and tested the wick all the way to the downside, which is pretty crazy. But if you guys have been watching me, you know that I say you can trade stuff within the wicks. It does work really well. But the big lesson I'm kind of straying away from it, sorry, is that the structure needs to break within a higher time frame POI to confirm it. And in a lot of cases, what you can do is something like this. You see that structure is holding, you approach a POI, you can just follow the lower time frame structure and be aware that if it decides to keep going, which in this case, I was confident that it would, because, oops, just changed pairs. I was confident that it would because my higher time frame point of interest was not met. My higher time frame point of interest was very clearly defined to be right here. Lines up with the 78.6% retracement, lines up with imbalance, lines up with sell to buy candles. We're approaching it. Now we trade into an area that I know smart money traders will be looking at to buy up. So what happens? The banks gather some orders here, right? They start accumulating a little bit, but then they end up taking it short because there's a higher time frame objective in play down here, and also because structure did not break. So the lesson, or the little trick, is that when you get into, in the case of a buy, a POI that you expect price to react from, like, in other words, smart money traders, dumb smart money, will be buying blindly off of this sell to buy inefficiency fill. That's going to be a thing, right? So what can you do? You can just follow the structure that is going to invalidate it. This bearish structure maintained the downtrend on the smaller time frames, and that smaller time frame downtrend invalidated the higher time frame POI that really had no backing other than just being a really clear sell to buy inefficiency fill. Those are the areas that the banks know all the dumb smart money traders will be looking at, and they're only confirmed when you get a break of structure within them. Just like this here, what never ever happened, no BOS. And that's my trick. My trick is that when you trade into these areas, a ton of people are going to be looking at nonstop all these orders being placed here by dumb smart money, right? That a ton of people are going to be buying it. The banks are going to be watching it. And what are they going to do? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to trade straight through it. That's why, look at how tight all of this is. Tight. And then once we attack the bottom of this area, so the invalidation point, because once you trade through it, it's no longer valid. Look at how impulsive it is. Just straight through it with zero pullback whatsoever in this leg down, right? So that's my trick, right? When you see these POIs that are very clear, wait for a BOS to confirm them. That's something I've always told you guys, but I do like trading this type of setup. When you trade into these areas, structure is still holding within them, giving you no indication that the reversal that everybody's expecting is going to happen. That's where the profit comes in. Everybody's expecting this reversal, so they're going to blindly buy it, and the banks know that. So they're going to take it lower. And how do they take it lower? They take it lower with the structure. So that's my dirty little trick, kind of a way for me to find trade setups that I really, really like. I do this pretty often, especially if you see something like this. Like if this POI got traded through right here, it's invalid, and then the structure's right here, you can almost always just sell it off of there. It works beautifully. And with this, again, I've gone over the logic several times, but people are going to be buying here. It's a very clear level. The banks know that. So what do? They're going to invalidate it. How do they invalidate it? By following structure, which is exactly why I took this sell to a higher time frame POI. And then this break of structure did end up holding because we didn't trade below this. So here's the high that produced the low. We don't break it. You can tell that it was an area of a structure, a swing high or low. In this case, a swing high, but you can tell it was a swing high because when we get to it, we push down. We're reluctant to break it. However, we do push above, and then we do not create a lower low because, again, we break above, and now we are bullish. So that was a little trade recap on GU and the logic. And I'm also throwing you guys that little trick that I use. Does work really well. So again, just to sum it up, when you see a really good area of interest that dumb smart money is going to be trading, you can trade through that using structure, just like this. People are going to buy, structure is going to keep pushing it lower, right? Lower highs and lower lows, ends up respecting and validated because of higher time frame intentions much lower, right? So, and they know people aren't going to wait for confirmations here. And you could have avoided losing buying here if you just waited for a confirmation. But I guarantee you somebody out there today just bought off of it and lost. Promise. Let's look at Euro USD. So Euro USD. Here was my POI within this wick. Now you can see the structure, right? Higher highs and higher lows. Now here is the swing low that we are bullish until we break. So until we break below this, we are bullish. And I mean, honestly, guys, you could consider this a single leg. This isn't too much of a pullback. And you can see that on the higher time frames, like 2 hour. I would struggle calling this a pullback. This is really just one leg to the upside, in my opinion. But I am expecting a reaction within this zone. So you can see again. POI for me right here within this wick, and we're just trending down. So what am I going to do? Trick question. I'm going to keep selling it off, right? So you can see this is the structure that we were following here. And right, lower low, lower high, lower low. And just for the hell of it, I'll get all into it. You can see. Boom, boom, yeah. Right here, here, here. So where do we actually break it? We actually break it here, but that's a very technical definition of it. To be honest with you, that's just, yeah, that's very in-depth as to like the actual structure and the technicality of it. But for me, what I was looking at is this. So you can clearly see, you know, just not accounting for everything over here. You can see that we're clearly making lower highs and lower lows, okay? So I'm looking at the charts. I'm seeing that we're clearly making lower highs and lower lows, right? That's not difficult to see, not difficult to pick up, right? Here they are. Now we break above, create a higher high, higher low, higher high. Now this, where do we break below? So this is the last low that produced a higher high right here. So what happens? We just chop, 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 chop. Just a whole lot of consolidated, ugly price action here, right? We break down here. So now what am I personally looking at? This is all, again, from a technical perspective, this is one leg to the downside. And you could argue that this was structure, but I would struggle to say that. I would say that this was a leg up. Now you can see we got these big reactions because we did technically make a higher high. So we expect a higher high, another or new higher high. So we were pushing up here, here, and here, attempting to create that higher high. But we fail and we break down. So now what am I automatically looking at? We break down. I'm going to be looking for supply areas to trade off of to take me into my higher time frame POI. So break down. Where's a good supply area? right here, right? You guys can see that right here. That was my entry. Of course, it missed, but that's okay. It actually mitigated right here. You could have taken the trade off this, and this is just a structural play, right? That's nothing fancy, nothing particularly interesting, but all you can see, lower lows and lower highs, break above. So this is, once we break above here, we break above, so lower low. And I apologize if it's kind of confusing, but we're clearly trending down, lower high, lower low, break above, higher high, higher low, higher high. Until we trade below this, we are bullish. That's exactly what I was meaning to say. I finally got it out. So we trade down, and now I'm looking for supplies within this leg. Where do I see one? I see a really clear one right here. So that was my POI, and I wanted to take it into my higher time frame area of interest right down here. And that's kind of where price has stopped. It's just been consolidating. You can see it's had a really difficult time actually breaking through this area of interest, right? And that is because it is a higher time frame swing point, and higher time frame swing points we know are expected to hold, not necessarily, but what do we do to make sure that it will? Well, we look for a break of structure, right? That's what we always do when we get into POIs. That's what I talked about on GBP USD. But again, just following structure, just follow structure and follow the supply and demand areas. Literally, that's all you do. That's my exact trading method. Structure, find your supply or demand areas. In this case, it's demand. And then you have a lower time frame entry confirmation. Boom. And this is applicable on all time frames. It's applicable on GU, like you saw, right? There is a POI like right here. So you're following structure. You are in an uptrend. But for me, I was aware that we had an area lower. You're in an uptrend. So this is a valid area of interest. But you want to see a break of structure. And what ended up happening? It didn't break structure, it continued through. That's why with these areas, don't just expect them to hold. Wait for a BOS to confirm it and then take the trade, right? That's literally it. On EU, what was I doing? I wear my higher time frame POI. Here's the structure. We make a lower low. So now what do I look for? I look for the supply within here to take a trade, right? And if I invert it, it'll look like the picture I just drew you guys. All right, lower low, but then we break back above here. So I'm going to be looking for, in this case now, since I inverted my chart, demand areas, right? I'm going to be looking for demand. And that's what ends up happening, right? You can see it is that simple, guys. I promise. I know it sounds or seems like, oh, of course it's easy for you. You know, you do this all the time, whatever. It's not an excuse, I promise. It is this simple. And yeah, we traded into this area of interest down here. So my POI was technically met, but again, follow the structure until it doesn't hold. It's a perfect example of it. People blindly buy up here. Blindly buy up in areas like this, just like on GU. They blindly buy it. That's why there's a huge reaction. What happens? Structure holds and we go lower. So the theme of this entire video is to follow the structure on all time frames, even the lower time frames like this. It'll save you so many times, guys. I promise. And then I obviously gave you my little trick. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I found that really useful for picking volatile trades, because when you get those like when you break through those levels, it's very impulsive. Now, this was on gold. I did take this trade and I got up 1-to-1 barely. I kind of barely saved my ass on it, but this low produced this high. Now this is a sell to buy candle. This is the origin of this move. This is like the last down move. So you guys can obviously see that, but very clear last down move before the up move. And if we go to the lower time frames, we trade into it. And what happens? Here's our structure. In hindsight, was it the prettiest thing in the world? No, it wasn't, but it was legitimate. And see. Where do we create our new low? Doesn't break below here, breaks below here. So BOS. Now, the reason I liked it is because this was a BOS here, right here. And then we made a higher low after testing this last down move, higher high. So I did expect a push back up, but it did end up holding. Obviously, it just kind of came down, chopped around, and then absolutely melted. But that's okay. There's obviously just more intention to go short, so now I'll be looking for shorts because on the higher time frame, we did break structure. You can see low that produced the high. For me, this was a BOS. This is the entire leg down right here. And where are some points of interest? There's one, because it's within this leg down. Here's another one. Now this barely missed this level, so this is still unmitigated sell or buy to sell area. So here are my POIs. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to wait. Again, what do we do? Follow the structure. BOS. Here's the structure. So let me fix this. There's our BOS. So here's our leg. So we found our structure, we found our POIs, and now what's the last step? Last step, let's wait for this. BOS here. BOS here. Or BOS here. Those are the probable areas. And what can you do? Say it's doing this. Buy it up, right? If it's not going to break structure, keep following it. But the moment it breaks, here, you're in a higher time frame POI. Your higher time frame intention is bearish. Your lower time frame is now switched to bearish. Look for a pullback to go short. This is your lower time frame trigger. This is your structural leg to the downside, or your total range of trading. And here is your higher time frame POI. So that is my complete lesson for tonight. I wanted to talk about structure again and give you guys that little trick I've learned, with following structure. So I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you all later. If you like this video, please share it, guys. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to you soon. Bye, guys.